Here's what's coming up tonight on Inside City Hall.
Part of our vision in establishing a Department of Community Safety is to start to take that responsibility of mental health crises and task mental health responders with that work.
New York One has confirmed that Mayor Mamdani is looking for a deputy mayor to oversee his proposed Department of Community Safety. Later this evening, we'll dig deeper into Mayor Mamdani's budget proposal with Andrew Rain, the president of the Citizens Budget Commission. And then we'll speak with Queensborough President Donovan Richards, who endorsed Mamdani's bid for mayor, but is now sounding the alarm over a proposed property tax increase. And we'll take a closer look at the race for state controller with Democratic candidate Drew Warshaw. For the best news, debate, and analysis of New York politics, join us inside City Hall. Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Thursday, February 19th, 2026. I'm Errol Lewis. Mayor Mamdani is planning to hire a deputy who will oversee the Department of Community Safety. A new office, the mayor says, will change how mental health crises get handled in New York. This comes as the mayor today defended his proposal to possibly increase the property tax rate in order to balance the city's budget. Our Dan Rivley joins me now with tonight's top story. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Errol. This new deputy will be responsible for answering the biggest outstanding questions about this new department, including its size, its scope, responsibilities, plus how and when social workers and specialists will respond to emergency mental health calls that right now NYPD officers handle. So a spokesman for Mayor Mamdani confirmed the news first reported in the New York Times and sent over this statement saying the mayor is deeply committed to establishing the Department of Community Safety, and this new deputy mayor will play a key role in setting the foundation for it with the help of First Deputy Mayor Foulahan. The First Deputy Mayor, Dean Foulahan, oversees the NYPD as part of his portfolio. Now, Mayor Mamdani earlier spoke about the Department of Community Safety, saying it could be the answer to the NYPD's recruitment problem, saying that officers can handle as many as 200,000 emergency mental health calls each year.
Part of our vision in establishing a Department of Community Safety is to start to take that responsibility of mental health crises and task mental health responders with that work, and to ensure that police can focus on the work that they signed up to focus on, which is tackling violent crime across the city.
Mayor Mamdani also took questions about his preliminary budget unveiled earlier in the week with a nearly $5.5 billion budget gap. Mayor Mamdani was asked why he simply could not simply cut that with reduced spending out of a $127 billion budget. Mayor Mamdani said any kind of cuts approaching 3% or more, and that means New Yorkers may actually start to feel a reduction in services.
That's the point at which garbage can collection is reduced. That's the point at which library service hours are cut. We do not want to put forward a city government that cannot meet the needs of New Yorkers.
And the options Mayor Mamdani has been offering to close this budget gap have Albany raise taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations, or as a last resort, the city will raise property taxes. Errol.
Yeah, there really are a lot of questions about this Department of Community Safety. As described, at least during the campaign, there are a lot of NYPD functions that would sit within this department, but they're saying it's not going to be run from police headquarters, but rather from a City Hall official.
Right, and I think this is where the details actually matter, because the most detail we've gotten was before he was inaugurated as mayor. He was still a candidate, and he had a briefing paper basically saying this would be $1.1 billion, the size of this new department. Hundreds of millions of dollars of that would be new spending. A lot of it would be existing spending, and bringing in some of these offices already established, like preventing gun violence, and move that under the under this new department. So I think it's really important the details get fleshed out, because the NYPD may need to have a role in responding to these calls if there's a weapon involved, if there is a danger to someone's livelihood, whether that's the social worker, the person themselves, and that relationship will have to be worked out. And you see Mayor Mamdani, he is not offering those details, but rather he's going to hire a deputy to start filling in the blanks.
Right, and whoever that person is, this is a frontline agency. If they're getting 200,000 calls a year, and let's say most of them or even half of them get diverted to this new Department of Community Safety, That's a lot of work each and every day.
Right, and I think staffing levels is going to be one of the key components, because as NYPD is dealing with hiring, so too are social workers and the men and women tasked with this work. You're going to need a lot of them. The money's got to be there, and he's already talking about this nearly $5.5 billion budget gap he's facing.
All right, thanks very much, Dan. In other news, a lawsuit accusing NYPD officials of operating like a criminal enterprise has been dismissed by a federal judge. The suit was filed by former interim police commissioner Tom Donlin. It accused the mayor, Eric Adams, and some of his top allies of corruption. Our Ayanna Harry joins me now with more on the case in reaction of the suit's dismissal from Donlin's lawyer. Good evening, Ayanna.
Good evening, Errol. This was a wide-ranging 250-page federal lawsuit filed by a man who was brought in to bring stability to the NYPD after his predecessor resigned in a cloud of controversy. But this suit, brought by former interim police chief Tom Donlin, has now been dismissed. A federal judge saying that failed to lay out any violation of federal law. In a statement, the city's law department praised the dismissal of Donlin's suit, saying, "We are pleased the court agreed there was no legal basis for this case to continue." But Donlin's attorney told New York One this case is not over yet. He's filing an appeal, noting Donlin isn't the only one alleging misconduct in the NYPD while Eric Adams was mayor.
I think ultimately Donlin's allegations in the lawsuit will bear out to be truthful as these federal investigations wrap up and indictments are sought and charges are brought. I think ultimately Commissioner Donlin the factual elements will be proven accurate.
Tom Donlin took over the police department on an interim basis for several weeks in the fall of 2024 before Jessica Tisch was named commissioner. Donlin's suit claimed, along with some high-ranking allies within the NYPD, the mayor ran the police department like a criminal enterprise, saying he uncovered systemic corruption. Donlin claimed Adams' allies in the department blocked his effort to root out police corruption, used his police commissioner stamp without his knowledge to promote unqualified officers. And Donlin says he was even retaliated against when he complained about some of this conduct to the mayor. But in dismissing the case, the judge found there wasn't a criminal enterprise because the police officials mentioned did not act with a common motive to violate the law. In discussing next steps, Donlin's lawyer explained why he felt it was so important to continue with an appeal and to speak about the allegations contained in this lawsuit publicly.
The people that Commissioner Donlin alleged of committing crimes are the highest levels of the police department. The people tasked with preventing crime and investigating crime are, based on the allegations in the complaint, are the ones committing the crimes. And I mean, the saying, the old adage is true: who's going to police the police?
Again, a federal judge has now dismissed former interim police commissioner Tom Donlin's lawsuit alleging the NYPD was being run as a criminal enterprise under Mayor Adams. He does still have another pending defamation lawsuit against the mayor, claiming that after he spoke out, alleging some of this corruption, the mayor then retaliated against him by questioning his cognitive abilities. Errol.
And so the things that were alleged in this lawsuit are clearly criminal. But if it doesn't meet the definition of a federal crime, is the idea that he might have to go to state court or go to some other venue to try and get justice?
Yeah, the idea, and that was essentially mentioned at the end of this decision, is that he can go to state court for some of the allegations. But another issue that the judge took with this complaint that was initially filed by Tom Donlin is that he mentions a wide range of activities that took place within the NYPD before Donlin ever got there, and that did not include Donlin. And so the judge essentially said, these matters are not even relevant to your case.
Oh, very interesting. And yeah, it really was kind of a grab bag, right? There were allegations of sexual misconduct and harassment. There were allegations of flat-out theft and of possibly defrauding the city.
Right, and also allegations of retaliation, and that former interim commissioner Tom Donlin, his wife was arrested, and shortly after her arrest, the details ended up in the New York Post. Donlin was saying that that was an act of retaliation again. Are the details in this complaint alarming? Yes, and the judge isn't even saying that they aren't unfounded. The question is whether or not they violate federal law, and the judge is saying from what was read and what was detailed that it wasn't a clear violation of federal law.
Okay, thanks very much, Ayanna. Meanwhile, Governor Kathy Hochul is in Washington, D.C. for the annual meeting of the National Governors Association. The event every year brings together governors from across the country, but it has been marred by controversy this year. That's because President Donald Trump disinvited 2 Democratic governors from a White House dinner, which in turn caused partisan strife to swallow the traditionally bipartisan event. Washington, D.C. reporter Shannon Ryan has more in this report.
Governor Hochul's visit to D.C. comes at a particularly contentious time for the state's relationship with the Trump administration, which has been cutting federal dollars from programs and projects in blue states. Perhaps the most notorious funding fight is over rehabilitation of the New York-New Jersey Gateway Tunnel, which was damaged in Hurricane Sandy. After several months in limbo, work on the $16 billion project is slated to resume next week, following a federal judge's ruling forcing the Trump administration to release nearly $130 million in frozen funds. Similarly, we've seen wind energy projects in the state start, stop, and restart amid funding feuds, with the Trump administration claiming they're expensive, unproductive eyesores that harm wildlife and even jeopardize national security. Federal dollars for other New York infrastructure projects, including the 2nd Avenue subway project, wastewater and water supply rehabilitation, have also been caught in the crosshairs, as have different social safety net programs. The Federal Policy Institute, a think tank focused on New York's economy, predicts funding cuts enacted under President Trump's signature tax and spending legislation will cost the state $8 billion in fiscal year 2027. We spoke to the head of a New York City nonprofit focused on poverty about how they feel the cuts will impact low-income New Yorkers.
We have poverty rates that are double the national average, and a poverty rate that has been growing over the last several years as we've come out of the pandemic. And so I think one thing to understand is that these challenges are greater in New York.
And the governor's meeting is slated to run through Saturday. In Washington, Shannon Ryan, New York 1.
Also today, a state appeals court sided with Democrats hoping to redraw Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis' district, which covers all of Staten Island and part of southern Brooklyn. The 5-judge panel unanimously ordered the state's Independent Redistricting Commission to redraw New York's 11th congressional district. The ruling likely marks the final time that New York courts will rule on the case, but Republicans are still appealing to the United States Supreme Court. Justice Sonia Sotomayor ordered Democrats to file papers responding to the Republicans' appeal by the end of the day today. Congresswoman Malliotakis responded to the ruling, saying in part, "I look forward to the Supreme Court's intervention in this case to uphold the rule of law and preserve the integrity of our elections." Governor Kathy Hochul also responded to the ruling, saying, quote, "After the appellate division's decision today, there is now a need for the New York Independent Redistricting Commission to begin the work of redrawing these maps." We are going to take a short break now, and when we come back, Governor Hochul revealed last month that she is on board with restricting state coordination with ICE, but now she is getting some pressure from some state lawmakers and advocates to go a step further. We'll bring you those details in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
When you're connected with Spectrum, you get 5G and fiber-powered internet combined for the fastest wireless speeds. So you can sweat for the right reasons. It's only the seamless connection you love at home, everywhere you go. It's only everything.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of, they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Governor Kathy Hochul revealed last month that she is in favor of restricting state coordination with ICE, but some state lawmakers and advocates wanted to go a step further and emulate New York City's sanctuary policies. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan breaks it all down in this report.
We will always cooperate with federal government to bring violent criminals to justice.
Nearly a month ago, Governor Kathy Hochul laid down her cards, revealing she's backing 3 proposals aimed at curbing federal immigration enforcement throughout the Empire State.
It does not mean that New York State will stand for flagrant abuse of power under the guise of public safety.
But Hochul is getting pressure to take it up a notch.
I think a lot of my colleagues want to go even further than the governor, myself included.
Weeks earlier, Democratic State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins put her stake in the ground, promising to pass the New York for All Act. One advocate explained the differences.
Governor Hochul's proposal limits formal contract agreements between local law enforcement authorities and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, but does not prohibit information sharing either between law enforcement and immigration officials or between other city and state institutions. So schools, hospitals, Department of Motor Vehicles would still be able to informally share information of people's sensitive data with ICE.
Since then, New York One learned Stewart-Cousins quietly assembled a working group of state Senate Democrats tasked with crafting proposals that would limit information sharing between state and local government with federal officials, similar to what New York City already has on the books.
The time is now to get something done. We are watching our neighbors, we're watching people in our community every single day be subject to violation of their constitutional rights.
While a 2017 executive order does limit state action, city sanctuary laws go the furthest, barring ICE from operating inside city jails and keep NYPD from detention requests. Exceptions exist, like when dealing with convicted felons or if someone has been placed on a terrorist watch list, or when a judicial warrant is served.
There's a difference between collaboration, cooperation, and communication. So what we've always done is we've communicated with our federal partners, but NYPD specifically, we do not collaborate in terms of working together to enforce immigration laws. That's just not our job.
Following heightened ICE activity in Minneapolis, Hochul and other moderate Democrats are trying to draw a line between supporting New York police and halting civil immigration enforcement. One former NYPD officer giving advice.
Having targeted rules that we know these are threats to public safety. Most people will agree they don't want to be around serious violent felons. They don't want their constituents or their community members to be around that. So making sure that's defined, I think that would definitely be a better or more practical proposal than just a blanket prohibition.
Hochul wants to end agreements between local police, their jails, and ICE until 2029. Others think that prohibition should be made permanent.
I don't think this issue disappears with the change in administrations. We have, again, seen immigration, especially with the funding that they are now receiving and the staffing that they have increased. We're likely to see aggressive immigration enforcement continue beyond the Trump administration.
Another measure creates avenues to sue federal officials for alleged violations of constitutional rights.
We have to have a measure to hold you accountable. Right now, that exists for state and local officials. It does not exist for federal officials. So we're just trying to get things in alignment. We are facing some constitutional issues.
There is no place for the trampling of New Yorkers' civil liberties and abuse and violence at the hands of federal officials in ICE. That's why we have to pass New York for All. That's why we have to pass legislation to keep ICE out of sensitive locations.
Legislative sources told New York One they're aiming to pass legislation as early as next month. Bernadette Hogan, New York One.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, I'll be joined in studio by the president of the Citizens Budget Commission. Andrew Ryan will talk about alternative ways to address the city's budget gap. Stay with us.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard. At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. City leaders are currently having a big debate over Mayor Mamdani's two proposed options to address the city's $5.4 billion budget gap. Either tax the wealthiest New Yorkers and large corporations or raise property taxes. Mayor Mamdani prefers the first option, but he needs help from Governor Hochul and the state legislature to do that. The mayor says that the latter option, raising property taxes, is a, quote, last resort. But my next guest questions the viability of either option. Joining me to talk about that and more is the president of the Citizens Budget Commission, Andrew Ryan. Welcome back to the program. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Now, I've talked with you before. I've talked with your predecessor. I've talked with you guys for many years. It seems to be that whether the economy is doing well or poorly, whether there's a Republican or a Democrat at City Hall, whether things are good or things are bad, you always reach the same conclusion. Cut government, don't raise taxes. Is this another example of that?
I think the issue here isn't about cutting government. It's about making sure government delivers quality services and the right services to New Yorkers. And right now, what we're doing is we've layered on spending, new programs and expanded programs. Some of them have been very good, but we haven't exercised the political will in the last administration or before that to make those programs affordable by saying, hey, there's some spending here that's not actually helping New Yorkers. Let's cut that. Here's some efficiencies. Here's where we can use technology. That's the approach we should do to deliver the right services, quality services to help New Yorkers.
But when you talk about political will, a couple of million people just went to the polls a few months ago, and they voted for the guy who said he wants to raise taxes, right? I mean, at some point, I mean, does that count for nothing?
No, listen, he got elected, he communicated his desires well, and he's proposed that. He's also proposed, I think, a false choice by saying if I can't do that, I can raise property taxes and dip into reserves. What we're saying, though, is New Yorkers will be better served for a better focused government serving high-quality services. You know, he issued an executive order number 12, which really directed these savings officers to do just that. It's actually very well crafted. That's the effort he should be pursuing.
The efficiencies that he's looking for in government, we'll find out, I guess, in about a month or so what they've come up with. You know, where do you think savings can be found?
I think you have to look at big ticket items and the scalpel. On the big ticket items, quite frankly, I think he should go to Albany, get relief from the class size reduction mandate so he can better manage the schools and save $1 billion. You know, we should be adjusting school spending not only when enrollment goes up and when enrollment goes down, saving $400 million. Procurement reform, we are terrible at it. We should consolidate procurement, standardize it, and actually be a better contractor and payer so that people actually want to do business and charge us without a price premium. That's $400 million. But then these savings officers go to every part, every program, and every agency and see what's working and see what doesn't. Look at technology, look at efficiency, look at redundant work processes and bureaucratic processes. There are plenty of opportunities. In fact, if you look at the spending in New York, and I know you came back with saying we're always talking about cutting spending. If we had kept spending at inflation for the last 10 years, we'd be spending $16 billion less than we do now. We only have a $5 billion problem. You know, tax revenue went up 8.3%. If you got a raise for 8.3%, you still had to dip into savings for $611 million. You say, I have a spending problem. We can do better for New Yorkers by delivering them better services.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to keep track of some of the numbers. You talked about what adds up to about $1 billion or so. The problem is we have a $5 billion hole.
So on the big ticket items, just a couple of examples. It was $1 billion on class size, $400 million in terms of adjusting school funding, $400 million on procurement. We have more, but that's $1.8 billion. That's before we go into the agencies and find out those places that we can save. That's the effort that should be redoubled, retripled before we ask New Yorkers to dig deeper into their pockets. You know, we are the highest tax jurisdiction in the country. We do risk losing or not attracting people who pay taxes for police, fire, sanitation, and businesses that hire New Yorkers. We need to focus on making government better.
Is there a jurisdiction somewhere else, whether it's a state or a city, that does things better that New York should be looking at as far as even just how we do ordinary business like procurement?
You know, there are examples throughout. I don't know that anybody does everything lock, stock, and barrel, but the key is to pick the best of them. And part of the strategy has to be a performance management system. Look, we've had CompStat for decades, but if we tailor that to every agency, why don't we have a performance management system that uses the right data and holds people accountable so they can improve it? That's what we did at the health department when I was there, and we provided quality services. We can do it, and we have the examples right here in New York.
Oh, I'm smiling because the last mayor, Eric Adams, said he was going to do exactly that. And, you know, merge systems, find efficiencies, CompStat, this measure, that measure, this measure, that measure, and none of those things happen.
Look, mayors have always talked about it. The key is to hire the right people, but have that directive. Let's expand that executive order and design a system that goes throughout all the agencies so we use the data, use the process, fix the problems, make the services better. It's kind of what was embodied in that executive order. Let's change it from savings officers to performance officers, and we should deliver that.
In a number of cases, there are budget watchdogs, including your organization, that point out extravagant cases of waste or mismanagement or problems that can be solved, laying out some pretty specific suggestions about how to fix those problems. And they come and they go, and the city council either doesn't pick up on them or the controller puts out an audit that nobody really goes back to. How do we make this sort of more real for the voters who ultimately are going to dictate what happens?
You know, I think we're seeing this right now. This is a self-inflicted crisis. Revenues are very strong, yet we still can't afford our bills. This is exactly, and I don't think there's anybody better than Mayor Mamdani, who believes that government can deliver and should deliver for people and has talked about and has issued Executive Order 12 to make that case that there are going to be trade-offs, but if we do it, we all win.
Your organization favors putting legal restrictions on how, or some legal framework to how we use the reserve fund. The state has reserve funds, and there are laws that dictate when you put money in, when you can take money out. It's somewhat controlled. We don't really quite have that at the city level, do we?
You know, it's really, you can drive a truck through it. We should strengthen the laws on making sure that we deposit, when times are good, deposit more money into the rainy day funds and have rules for when we take it out during a recession or a severe emergency. The rainy day fund should protect New Yorkers from a recession. That's why we don't advocate the mayor using it right now, because we need to save it to help New Yorkers when they need the help the most.
Okay, we'll leave it there for now. We're at the start of the budget season. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about before it's all over. Thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with you.
Thanks for having me.
Andrew Rain of the Citizens Budget Commission. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll keep our focus on the budget when I'm joined in studio by Queensborough President Donovan Richards. We're going to talk about why he is opposed to the mayor's proposed property tax hike. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network. And factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. We just heard from Andrew Rain of the Citizens Budget Commission about how the city can better address its budget shortfall. One elected official who endorsed Mamdani's mayoral bid is sounding the alarm and disapproving of this idea that we should raise property taxes in particular. The Queensborough President Donovan Richards joins me to talk about that and much more. Welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you, Aaron.
I saw you made a statement saying, among other things, that the proposal could negatively affect your borough and take Queens back to the financial catastrophe of 2008. That sounds pretty dire. Which part of what's being discussed most concerns you?
Well, you think back to 2008 during the foreclosure crisis, and there were several neighborhoods that were deeply impacted, and Southeast Queens being the hotbed of the foreclosure activity during that period. It took about a 9.5% increase when everybody's water is going up, electricity has gone up, the rent is too damn high, the mortgage is too damn high, and this really can have a negative impact, especially on Black and brown New Yorkers who are trying to hold on to the American dream.
You spent a lot of time in the city council, so you've seen what used to be called the budget dance, where in the first phase of the budget dance, the mayor says, I have to close firehouses, senior centers, pools, libraries. Everybody goes crazy. Sometime before June 30th, it all gets resolved. Is this another version of that?
Yeah, but, you know, I take privilege with the mayor using this as a negotiating ploy. Partially because a lot of our residents are already under a lot of anxiety. They're facing financial insecurity. You think of the senior citizen who's on a fixed income who is now hearing this, and while it may be a negotiating ploy, this is a non-starter for us.
Well, yeah, it doesn't seem to have worked, if that's what it was, right?
right.
I mean, your name, I have to mention, was in the news a few weeks ago as a leading candidate to be the running mate of Governor Hochul. Did you consider trying to become lieutenant governor?
I never did consider it, in all honesty. Queens, we need to ensure that during this moment in history when ICE is attacking our communities, we need to make sure that our borough had certainty. And I respect the governor. We have phenomenal relationship. We've had several conversations around it. And it was an honor to actually be on the list. First of all, I'll just start with that, being a kid from Far Rockaway, Southeast Queens, born to teenage parents, 23rd year in government. But I will work my behind off for Governor Hochul over the course of this campaign. And obviously, she has no primary.
Right. Well, no, I mean, yesterday we had the public advocate on, and Jumaane Williams said that the anger and blame, the antipathy towards this idea that Mayor Mamdani put forward, he said should be directed at Governor Hochul instead. I was wondering if there's, I don't know, what do you think of that?
No, I think a lot of this should be aimed at Washington, D.C. Remember, and former Mayor Eric Adams rightfully sounded the alarm on the asylum crisis that we were facing as a city, right? And that really put us in this predicament in the first place. But there are things that the mayor can do. Property tax reform, we've talked about it. I was one of those individuals part of the lawsuit. There's a real opportunity, I think, working with Mayor Mamdani, and this is where I believe he's getting it correct, to finally have a real conversation with Albany on those reforms. I think some other things, you know, he has his CSOs, his chief saving officers, should certainly be looking at savings within the agencies. Every year we have the same conversation, Errol, around $1 billion overspent in police overtime. There are definitely savings. Maybe we should get some of these capital projects done on time, because what's happening is the price to build a park just increases every year based on inflation from Washington as well. So I don't put this at the governor's doorstep. She literally did put $1.5 billion down, and we should go back and work with her more.
Well, let me ask you something I really was trying to get at with Mr. Rain. What is it about the political culture here in New York that stops these things from happening? Because I've watched you and other members, when you were in the city council, complain about taking 10 years to get a restroom built in rebuilt, frankly, in a park. It shouldn't take that long. The expense is too high. The time is too long. The money is being maybe not wasted, but not being spent wisely. And yet we have the same conversation every 5 years, every 10 years, we come back to it over and over.
But there's been some movement, not enough movement. A lot of this is to do to what we have from a state regulatory framework. So we do have to work with our state partners to really cut through a lot of the procurement processes that we do have. And that's a conversation I know that City Hall has been having with the governor's office and with the state officials as well. So there's still work to be done. I don't want to say there's been no progress. The School Construction Authority recently, by the way, just figured out a way to pay their contractors on time to move projects faster. So for instance, we just cut the ribbon just on a simple project, a new field at Bayside High School, which was done in 3 months, by the way. Historic. So it can be done, but it does take political will.
The Speaker of the Council, Julie Menon, has talked about health care savings, joint purchasing, or other ways of sort of bringing down the cost of government in that area. No-bid contracts are a ripe area for reform as well. What have you noticed in your years in government where we might be able to find some savings?
Yeah, DC 37 every year talks about these white papers, whether it's Department of Education, whether it's the Department of Education, whether it is no-bid contracts. Every year we're having the same conversation. So those prices just continue to increase over time, and I do think we should pay close attention to making sure that those no-bid contracts are not out there.
Okay. I know this is one of your favorite parts of your job, but let's talk about the big things that are happening in Queens. Bring us up to date on the casino bid, the soccer stadium, all the other stuff that's going on.
Well, Queens hit the jackpot, Errol. We now in the process of expanding Resorts World. We're moving some sewer infrastructure now at Citi Field to prepare for Metropolitan Park, which is going to have about 23,000 workers. So you're talking about upwards of 30,000 jobs in Queens County. And you think about where we came from, an unemployment rate at 26% in 2020 to now down to just simply around 4.9%, 5.2% actually with inflation because of Trump. Then the soccer stadium coming, which is huge. We anticipate to open the doors next year. You just might have heard the announcement that the Olympics are going to play 5 games there next year. And then we also have some big housing developments, the approval of the Jamaica plan and also of the Long Island City plan. That's upwards of 25,000 units. And we announced the redevelopment of the Creedmoor site. So as we talk about home ownership and black and brown New Yorkers largely being locked out of home ownership, we now are going to produce upwards of 2,100 units, the majority affordable home ownership, working with Governor Hochul.
Yeah, say a word about that. You're one of the officials who talks frequently about home ownership, even though, strictly speaking, the political numbers face a favor talking about the needs of renters.
Yeah, and I think rentals are a pathway to home ownership, and I think we've sort of lost it. I just go back to my early days with my son being born and my wife at the time, and we were able to save through a rental and then afford a home. Mm-hmm. We need to get back to ensuring that the next generation of individuals have access to home ownership, and this pathway is really going to be deep, affordable home ownership, and then we'll do some supportive housing on the site, some veterans housing, mixed income, new community center, a lot of new infrastructure coming in. So stay tuned. The bids are coming in as we speak, and we'll hear a lot. You'll hear a lot more about that.
Okay, sounds very good. And in our last minute, last but not least, the Governor's Ball coming back to Flushing Meadows, Corona Park. I see you there every summer, having a great time at addressing the crowd.
Yes. Oh, listen, I'm in heaven. I got the Clips. We got Freddie Gibbs playing. Like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. The Clips headlining this summer. We will see you out there. Thanks so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Quick programming note before the break. New York One will debut Welcome to Queens, Black History in the World's Borough. It's hosted by Cheryl Wills. From smooth jazz to prominent men and women in politics, the borough has a long list of black innovators and leaders who have helped shape the city's history. You can check that special out tonight at 9 p.m. Now we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll give you the details of a new report that argues that funding for Mayor Mamdani's free bus plan would be better spent on expanding the subway system into transit deserts. We'll explain all of that and more in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer. As chief meteorologist at New York One, I'm honored to be able to help New Yorkers plan their day.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our Weather on the Ones. Watch the New York One weather experts with your Weather on the Ones on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
I moved from Dallas to Los Angeles all by myself. The order of things I wanted to set up was internet, water, then power. I needed to take a shower, but I really did need the internet for work and to watch my shows. That's kind of a crazy thing to admit in front of a camera. Pretend I didn't say that. I got to Spectrum. I was so relieved that I was getting the best bang for my buck. It was a huge weight taken off of my shoulders.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. One of Mayor Mamdani's early campaign promises was fast and free buses. But a new report argues that it would be better to spend money on expanding the subway system instead. New York One Transit reporter Samantha Liebman has the details in this report.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani ran on a campaign promise of fast and free buses, which the MTA estimates would cost at least about $1 billion a year. But a new report from the NYU Marin Institute says if the MTA can secure that funding, but instead use it to expand the subway system, it could lead to more than 160,000 housing units.
We don't believe that people are leaving New York because of the bus fare. We think people are leaving New York because they can't afford the rent.
The report, A Better Billion, recommends investing in 41 miles of subway line, mostly extensions of current lines, which in turn would spur new development.
You know, travel time for lower rent is the theory. And so I think it's a really compelling idea. New York has not built a new subway line, standalone since 1940. But the demographics have changed. The population of Queens has grown by 1 million people since 1940.
The report proposes 12 projects with 64 new stations over 40 years. It includes a $6 billion 5-train expansion south along Utica Avenue to Kings Plaza, which is estimated to create more than 17,000 new housing units.
So in theory, every new additional unit of housing reduces the overall cost of housing in, a citywide scenario.
Some other proposals, an extension of the 6-train past Co-op City, the extension of the E south to Springfield Boulevard near the Belt Parkway for $1.7 billion that could produce more than 18,000 apartments, and the creation of a new light rail, calling it the 12 line along Fordham Road that would cost an estimated $6 billion and spur construction of nearly 36,000 housing units.
That would be truly transformative. It's really hard to go east-west in the Bronx. Like, it has some subways, but they're north-south in their orientation.
The report suggests it would give residents who currently drive access to the subway, which costs on average $10,000 less per year than owning a car, according to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. Samantha Liebman, New York One.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, State Controller Tom DiNapoli is up for re-election this year. He is facing 3 Democratic challengers. We'll be speaking with one of them, Drew Warshaw, next. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
We are back inside City Hall, focusing now on the race for state controller. The current controller, Tom DiNapoli, has been the fiscal watchdog of New York State since 2007. This June, he is up for re-election and facing a crowded primary Democratic field with 3 challengers so far, including my next guest, Drew Warshaw.
The state controller's job is one sentence: manage your money. The current guy's been there for 18 years, and he wants a 6th term. We can't afford more of the same. We are in a raging affordability crisis, and the state controller's office can actually solve challenges that we face. I'm not a politician, but New Yorkers need a change.
Drew Warshaw is an affordable housing nonprofit executive and a former assistant secretary to Governor Eliot Spitzer. He joins us now to talk more about his campaign. Welcome to the program. Good to see you.
Errol, thanks for having me.
Why are you doing this? This is a very, very big job. It's one of the biggest ones in politics, from even just purely from the point of view of getting around to 62 counties.
Yeah, well, first, I just appreciate you spotlighting the most powerful office in government that few New Yorkers have ever heard of, because we are in a moment where working New Yorkers are getting crushed. They're getting crushed from Donald Trump and a relentless barrage from Washington, D.C., and unfortunately increasingly in our neighborhoods, and they're getting crushed by a cost crisis right here. And if you were sitting on money and you were sitting on power and you were not using both of those things for working New Yorkers, then you've got to step aside. And after 20 years, it is time we do it different.
The main job, at least the statutory job, involves being the sole trustee of a very, very large pension fund for retired state employees. What part of that job deals with affordability?
Sure, and what is remarkable is that no one over the last 19 years has ever asked and answered the question, how has he done? How has he managed this $300 billion pension fund? And there is a one-to-one connection between how he performs his investment duties and our pockets, because if he doesn't do a good job, taxpayers have to make up the difference. And he has hired literally 664 different Wall Street investment managers, and he's given them the public's money and the money of public school teachers and firefighters, and he's given them all these fees, $11 billion of fees over the last 19 years. He's literally made these guys millionaires, and they haven't done their job. They haven't actually beaten the market net of their fees. And I would do something very different. I would fire all 664 investment managers, because if you and I didn't do our job over the last 19 years, we'd be fired too. And we can take out the Wall Street middlemen that are sucking value and not adding value. And instead of investing with private equity companies, we could invest that money in homes that New Yorkers can actually afford and still earn a reasonable rate of return for the pension fund.
Yeah, talk about risk involved with that. I mean, I've learned over the years that, I guess, for one thing, when you talk about underperformance, the fair metric, the proper metric, is comparing this gigantic pension fund to its peers, Philadelphia teachers or the, CalPERS, the California retirement system. How has he done when you do those kind of comparisons?
So 2 things. One, he's in the bottom third in terms of the comparison to his peers. But we did one better. We compared it to himself, because everyone allocates their capital differently, whether you're in California or in Florida. So the only apples to apples way you can actually compare to himself is just look at his own benchmarks. How has he done against his own benchmarks? And again, no one ever answered that question until we came along. And it turns out he and his bankers have underperformed the market by 39%. And that has consequences for you and me. Again, there's a one-to-one connection to our pockets, because as a result of that, we've had to pay $59.1 billion of higher property and state income taxes to fill his underperformance, literally to bail him out and the 664 bankers who work for him, because it is the law. Most people don't realize this. It's the law for the state pension fund to be fully funded. It has to be fully funded. The question is how? Is it from investment returns because he's good at his job, or is it from the 11 million taxpayers in New York? And it turns out over the last 19 years, it's the greatest story never told. It's the taxpayers that have bailed him out.
So you're saying you could get better performance, you'd fire 600 advisors or whatever it is. What would you be investing in? You mentioned something about real estate. You're not going to speculate in real estate, are you?
We would replace those 664 Wall Street investment managers with a diversified set of low-cost index funds. This is investing 101. This is what everyone tells you to do with your money, is find the cheapest possible way to expose yourself to a diverse set of asset classes, which is exactly what we would do. And then we would take $10 billion and stake the largest housing fund in the United States of America, because New Yorkers can no longer afford to live in New York. And the biggest single reason is they can't afford their home. The fig tree, the place where they go for security, safety, and value, has turned into something that is the opposite of those things. And one guy is sitting on $300 billion of the public's money, and none of that money right now is going into homes that New Yorkers can afford.
What would the $10 billion leverage or produce?
So 100,000 new homes, that $10 billion would translate into, and we have experience in this. I most recently led the largest affordable housing nonprofit in the United States, and we invested that money, and we earned a perfectly reasonable rate of return. So there is no good reason to not do this. And New Yorkers right now, they are shouting for change. They cannot afford to live where they work. And one guy is sitting on $300 billion, the sole trustee of that fund, as we were talking about before. One guy controls it. He can make a difference. After 20 years, it's time for a change.
In our last minute, let's talk about your path to victory. This is a crowded field, as I mentioned. Raj Goyal is running. We've talked with him, with Adam Bunkadeko. He's also come on the show. All three of you are running, along with the controller running for re-election. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you get from here to the finish line?
I think when New Yorkers understand that we are giving our money to private equity companies instead of housing, when there is a choice between continuing to invest in fossil fuel companies and getting out of assets that are not just killing our planet, but are killing our pension fund, when New Yorkers understand that we have an opportunity to audit the 14 municipalities and counties that right now are colluding with Donald Trump's private militia, ICE, that we can actually do something about that. When we can get out of Palantir and foreign bonds where we have a ridiculously high concentration in, when we can invest in homes, not just divest from the bad things, but invest in homes that New Yorkers can afford, I think the choice after 20 years is going to be very clear.
Okay, we will wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you out on the campaign trail. Thanks so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
That's Drew Warshaw, candidate for state controller. And that's going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
You might think Spectrum is just for your home, but Spectrum is seamless connectivity everywhere. It's the network making the other networks sweat. Connectivity from an actual internet company, because internet is what you actually use your phone for. It's way more than 5G. With Spectrum One, it's 5G and fiber-powered internet, seamlessly combined for the fastest wireless speeds. This guy, he's one of millions who already know. Oh yeah, and this guy too. Turns out people like their mobile from a seamless connectivity company. That's why Spectrum is the country's fastest growing mobile provider. Spectrum One. It's only the seamless connection you love at home, everywhere you go. It's only everything.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking